Hi, everyone. I've been getting quite a few questions about the fee increases that happened this year at the Patent Office. First, let me give you a little background. The Patent Office is self-funded, and the user fees pay for the activity at the Patent Office, so they're regularly adjusting their fees. With that said, they're often trying to encourage certain behavior with these changes. And most starkly, I see that they're trying to promote compact prosecution, getting your patent through the office pretty quickly. So during examination, you're going to argue back and forth with the examiner on whether or not you should get the patent, what the claim scope should be, and what you're entitled to. And there are lots of evidence, just kind of hopeless, right? You'll file request for continued examination, which is just a way to get more rounds of argument. You also sometimes will have big patent families where you'll have continuations after continuations after continuations, and the fees on those sorts of things have gone up, right? So the Patent Office wants you to file your patent and get the answer pretty quickly. So if you have a hopeless case, know that you have a hopeless case. If you know you have a hopeless case, know that you have a hopeless case. If you know you have a bunch of ideas in one particular patent, they want you to perhaps go after them in parallel so quickly the industry can figure out what the scope of your protection might be, right? You can have patent claim to the issue. I had this recently for patent that was being put up for licensing by my client, and their claims. Issued 19 years into the 20 years. Now, it's a really tortured interpretation of what they had written off. And of course, they tortured it to make it applicable to technology today, which I thought was a bit of a stretch, but nonetheless. It would have been nice to know that many, many years ago, so these increased fees and continuations are going to encourage people to nail down scope with their patents early in the process. Because the fees are quite expensive as you get halfway through that 20-year term or so it has an escalating fee in that regard. And then, don't argue these cases forever, so through our tools out there. Of course, Triangle IP helps you through this process. If you're arguing a case, well, there's a few explanations for that. It could be that your counsel's just not getting to the point with regard to your innovation in that particular examiner. Could be that the examiner is really, really tough, right? It could be that your innovation is just not going to get the claim scope that you want, so your claim scope is too aggressive. Well, the triangle tool tells you how tough your examiner is, how many rounds of argument they typically go. So I look at those cases that have gone far more rounds than is typical for a particular examiner, and then you can decide. So I looked at one the other day where the examiner had on it bridge less than 2 rounds of argument to allowance, and this particular case was at 9 rounds already. So I pointed that out to counsel, inside counsel at the company. And they made the command decision after looking at it that it was just a hopeless case. They really weren't going to get a patent in that area. And why continue paying counsel to fight at the patent office when it was really a hopeless case? So identify those cases. Another thing that you can do within the enterprise is you can look at these patent families and decide whether or not continuations make sense or not. When you file the patent, things evolve right after filing. Maybe it's a hot area, maybe it's not a hot area. If it's a hot area, you might file more continuations. In fact, you might go after them in parallel. So you get this coverage before the fees get too out of hand. If it's not a hot area and you're a few years into it and the industry is pivoted in a different direction, just close up the family. Don't file your continuations. Take the scope that you've gotten and move on, right? Save that budget for something else. And then I always have to mention this because it's where a lot of fees, I believe, are wasted. After your patent is issued, you have to pay maintenance fees or annuities, sometimes they're called patent taxes. With the patent office is completely done with what they need to do, but they have this escalating fee. It's different for every country. But the fees are quite high, at the last one in for US patent is, I think, $8,000. That's a lot of money. For that kind of money, you could almost pay to have a new patent filed at the office. So think long and hard when those annuities come due, whether or not this particular patent you're renewing is in an area that's hot or not, and prune out those cases that are just not in hot area. You could seek to license them out. But anyway, those annuities add up pretty quickly, where a large part of your own budget is going to go toward annuities unless you have a logical and thoughtful way to target those cases that are not likely to be important to your success. So if you do those things, I think you'll be in line with what the Patent Office is trying to accomplish. Here is, you want combat or execution. You don't want to go excessive rounds. Unless absolutely necessary, you want to figure out which families are the ones to really expand out and which ones are the ones to close out, move on, and always pay attention to those annuities. So I hope that helps and answers your question. If you have any follow-up questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe.